Commander Elena Vasquez stood before the emergency council, her jaw set in that stubborn line that Admiral Morrison had come to dread. The holographic display behind her showed the incoming Kethtar fleet, 300 warships bearing down, on New Geneva with genocidal intent. "Your proposal is suicide, Commander," Morrison said, his weathered face creased with disapproval. "You want to take a single frigate against their entire armada? That's not bravery. That's recklessness." Elena's dark eyes flashed. "With respect, sir, conventional tactics got us into this mess. The Kethtar have superior numbers, superior firepower, and superior shielding. We need something they won't expect." "What you're suggesting isn't unexpected. It's impossible." Morrison gestured to the tactical display. "Their flagship alone has enough firepower to glass a continent. You'd be vaporized before you got within 10,000 kilometers." "Not if they don't see me coming." The other council members exchanged worried glances. Dr. Chen, the colony's chief scientist, leaned forward. "Elena, the cloaking technology is still experimental. We've only tested it on unmanned probes." "And it worked perfectly," Elena countered. "Besides, we don't have time for more tests. Their fleet arrives in 18 hours. New Geneva has 2 million civilians who can't be evacuated in time." Admiral Morrison stood, his chair scraping against the floor. "I won't authorize a suicide mission based on untested technology and one woman's reckless instincts." Elena's expression hardened. "Then I'll do it without authorization." The room fell silent. Morrison's face reddened. "Commander, you're relieved of duty. Security? Escort her to—" "Wait." Dr. Chen raised her hand. "What exactly are you proposing, Elena?" Elena activated her personal display, showing a detailed schematic. "The Kethtar flagship generates its shields using a massive fusion core. If I can get close enough to detonate an antimatter charge directly against their primary power coupling, the resulting cascade failure will destroy not just the flagship, but create an electromagnetic pulse that will disable their entire fleets. Navigation systems. For how long?" asked General Hayes, the colony's military commander. "Long enough for our defense fleet to pick them off one by one while they're blind and disorganized." Morrison scoffed. "Even if your plan works, and that's a massive if, how? Do you plan to get past their sensor arrays? The Kethtar aren't fools?" Elena smiled grimly. "They're not fools, but they're predictable. They scan for heat signatures, electromagnetic emissions, and mass displacement. Our cloaking technology masks all three, but only on ships smaller than a frigate." "Which is why you want to take the Defiant," Dr. Chen said, understanding dawning in her voice. "She's the smallest ship in our fleet with enough firepower to carry the antimatter payload, and she's fast enough to reach the flagship before they detect the approach." Morrison shook his head. "You're talking about a one-way trip, Commander. Even if you succeed, you'll be at the epicenter of an antimatter explosion." Elena's voice was steady. "New Geneva is worth it." The Admiral studied her for a long moment, seeing something in her eyes that made him reconsider. This wasn't recklessness. It was calculated desperation backed by unshakable resolve. "The Council will vote," he said finally. 3 hours later, Elena was running final checks on the Defiant's systems. The vote had been close. 4 in favor, 3 against, with Morrison's reluctant approval casting the deciding vote. The antimatter charge was secured in the cargo bay, and the experimental cloaking device hummed with barely contained energy. "Elena." Morrison's voice crackled through the comm. "I want you to know, I still think you're reckless." She smiled as she initiated the launch sequence. "I know, sir. See you on the other side." The Defiant slipped away from New Geneva's orbital. Stationed like a ghost, its cloaking field bending light and sensor waves around its hull. Elena had 12 hours to reach the Kethtar fleet before they entered weapons range of the colony. As she flew through the void, Elena thought about the label Morrison had given her. Reckless. Maybe he was right. Her entire career had been built on calculated risks that others considered impossible. She'd earned her reputation by succeeding where others failed, but also by surviving situations that killed more cautious officers. But this wasn't recklessness. This was necessity wearing the mask of desperation. 6 hours out, her sensors detected. The Kethtar advanced scouts. The alien ships moved in perfect formation, their organic-looking hulls pulsing with bioluminescent threat displays. Elena held her breath as she passed between them, the cloaking field holding steady. 4 hours later, she saw the main fleet. It was even more massive than the tactical displays had suggested. A wall of living metal stretching across the starfield like some cosmic predator. At its center, the flagship Kethmaran drifted with the lazy confidence of absolute power. Elena began her final approach, hands steady on the controls despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. The antimatter charge was armed. The detonation timer set for 60 seconds, enough time to reach the power coupling, not enough time for second thoughts. 2,000 kilometers, she whispered to herself. 1,500. Warning. Lights began flashing on the Kethtar flagship. They'd detected something, but couldn't lock onto her position. Confusion spread through their formation as ships turned to scan empty space. 100 kilometers. Elena's targeting system locked onto the power coupling, a massive conduit running along the flagship's underside. She armed the antimatter. Charge and prepared to release it. 50 kilometers. The Kethtar finally saw her. Every weapon on the flagship swiveled in her direction, charging with deadly light. But Elena was already past their firing solutions, too close for their massive. Guns to track! Contact! She released the charge and pulled the Defiant into a crushing turn, racing away from the flagship at maximum burn. Behind her, the antimatter charge struck the power coupling exactly as planned. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Kethmaran, lit up like a dying star, its shields failing in a cascade of energy that propagated through the entire fleet's linked systems. 300 Kethtar warships went dark simultaneously, their crews blind and helpless as New Geneva's defense fleet emerged from the planet's shadow with weapons blazing. Elena watched the battle unfold from a safe distance, her ship intact and her heart pounding with vindication. Her calm crackled to life. Morrison's voice, thick with emotion and grudging respect. Commander Vasquez, this is Admiral Morrison. On behalf of New Geneva's 2 million citizens, thank you for being reckless. Elena smiled, already plotting a course home. Just doing my job, sir. Recklessly. The Kethtar fleet was scattered to the winds within hours, their invasion broken by one human's refusal to accept the impossible. In the years that followed, Elena's actions at New Geneva would become legend. Proof that sometimes the most reckless plan is the only one that makes sense. Morrison had called her reckless. She'd proven him wrong with a starship, a countdown, and the kind of desperate courage that defined humanity's place among the stars.